Having an adventure van is so much fun. The industry is fun, the build was fun, the trips we take are fun. Everything about it to me is just fun for the entire family, and I love that. Like I always say, there's no better way to travel or camp than a big, giant 4x4 Sprinter converter. At this point in my life, I'm a few years into this adventure van thing, but I've been into the off-roading scene forever, since the 90s, right? Transitioning from the Jeep stuff into the adventure van stuff is definitely different, but it's not so different that you don't recognize some of the common problems that could occur when you're building these Sprinter vans out. So that means the beginner who hasn't had the experience in the off-road world may trip up and make some mistakes that they don't have to make if they pay attention to this video right here. I can't even imagine the amount of adventure vans I've seen up to this point. I love the professional builders' take on the adventure van. They have the refined quality of like I'll say of like a high grade carpentry that you'd find like in houses, and it's crazy. The innovation, the creativity, it's all great. But you know what I love even more? I love the DIYer that envisions their van, that does the research, that puts the blood, sweat, and tears into it and builds out their van themselves. And although it may not be professional grade like the high-end builders, it's something that came out of their passion and their own effort. And that is something that you find less and less in the world today. But there's one big red flag that I want to throw up for all professional builders as well as the DIYer. Now, having the experience in the off-road space, I understand some of the challenges of building out these rigs to be able to take a beating on the trail and not break down or break your vehicle. I see all the time builders come out and they make these beautiful vans, but they don't take in consideration, or maybe they don't have the experience on the trail that gives them what they need to create a interior that will withstand the test of time. Or on the DIYer side, he just doesn't have the knowledge of engineering on what it takes to kind of build something to withstand, to kind of hold up to the beatings of just getting off-road, even on the easiest fire road. That leads me to this. The number one modification in your entire build process that you need to avoid is an overweighted van. Most of what you'll find in the van builds today are this Baltic birch wood that is like super heavy duty to withstand the beating, but it weighs a ton. Or you'll go in the opposite direction. You'll see all this excursion and stuff just kind of bolt up, but those screws always seem to work themselves out, and everything is so screwed together that it's bound to happen where some of those screws start coming out. I think the manufacturing process for both types of build is great. It's fine. You just have to design properly. I remember when I got my van for the first time back in 2021, and that was only a few years ago. So one, you see the industry and how it's grown in so much in so little time, but how, I'll say primitive, but I don't necessarily mean it in the sense of a negative, how it was even back when I bought my van for the first time. I used to see these exterior parts made out of steel everywhere. There are companies that still make them out of steel, and they try to lighten the weight as much as they can, but steel is heavy. And although these vans don't lack the power, they are big. So there's a lot of twisting and turning. There's a lot of wear and tear on the parts when you're on the trails. And when you have an overweighted rig with like this giant 250, 300 pound roof rack on top of your Sprinter, not only are you super top heavy when it comes to getting the articulation going in these vans on the trail, but the weight itself bouncing around on the factory parts is just a lot of pounds of pressure going into the same area that's just not built to take that kind of pressure. On the interior of your van, you have to think of things like top heavy and bottom heavy, right? So if you're gonna put the weight of your cabinetry in your van, put it on the floor. Don't put it up in cabinets, on overhanging cabinets. Those are super heavy when they're made out of solid wood, especially solid Baltic birch. That creates this level of making your van top heavy, as well as just a lot of weight hanging when you're banging around, that you probably don't want that if you can avoid it somehow. So if you put your cabinetry in, if you put the weight on the floor, at least it is a nice lower center of gravity for your van. Although you still have to worry about an overweighted van taxing the actual parts on the van. Let me give you 5 reasons why you never want to build a van that's overweighted. A lot of these components that we just bolt onto our vehicles or we install on the interior are super heavy. If you're using heavy woods for the upper cabinets, if you're using a heavy steel roof rack for the roof, know that you're making your already super tall Mercedes very top heavy. Number 2, axle weight. Now these big old Sprinter vans are rated to carry a lot of weight, sure, but you'd be surprised how quickly you exceed that weight when you're doing a van build, especially when you're not paying attention to weight. Axle weight is important. You will, without a doubt, break an axle if you're bouncing around with a van that's too heavy out on the trail. Number 3, tire rating. If you build your van so heavy it exceeds the tire rating of the tires, you will continuously have problems blowing out tires. Number 4, wear and tear on the OEM parts specifically. So you get your adventure van out, it's 4-wheel drive Sprinter, tall, 144 or 170, doesn't matter. You build this thing out right, you get it all, but it's a little overweighted. Even though you beefed up suspension and all this other stuff, there's all the parts that still connect to those parts that you beefed up. There's still a ton of OEM stuff in there, which is not rated for an overweighted van on the trails. That's why you have to be aware of the weight that you built into your van as well as the type of driving you're gonna be doing. And number 5 is kind of a common sense no-brainer, but the heavier you build your adventure van, the worse it will perform with the OEM stuff. That makes sense. So for example, let's throw this into the Jeep world. If you go and you put big giant oversized tires on your Jeep, it's very evident that you need to re-gear, right? You need to put a gear ratio in there that can move those bigger tires as well as the factory gear setting move the factory tires. That kind of modification with gearing kind of offsets the work that you did on putting the oversized stuff on, so you're good. So when you're doing like the adventure van build and you're just beefing up suspension and you're just kind of building out the interior and you're putting on all the cool exterior parts, know that everything that's connected from that suspension point inward is OEM, and it needs to either be beefed up or at least taken into consideration when you're maxing out the weight of your adventure van. Guys, there's good news. I own a 2021 Mercedes tall 4-wheel drive 144. That thing, cargo, and that thing is already built to really carry a load. So I have a big margin of what I put in there. So when I went my route of my build, I searched for the components that I wanted, which are actually lighter weight aluminum components. I don't have to worry about the weight. I don't have to worry about the durability. I don't have to worry about them standing the test of time. They won't vibrate apart. The screws won't come out. My entire setup on my interior is made from riveted aluminum from Lost Highway Customs, and my exterior is mostly aluminum. And I'm not saying that every builder is out there overbuilding their vans. I'm not saying that every DIYer is putting so much crap in their van that it's weighing it down, it's gonna break down all the time. What I am saying though is this: if you have a van and you're on a trail or you take trips frequently and you notice that there's always something happening with your Sprinter on your trips, there's always something that fails, it's probably due to the weight. These Sprinter vans have been proven for decades and decades. They are built tough. Now, the aftermarket world seems to have mostly good higher end components in it. Only brands that are kind of understanding the van world really kind of are big players in the industry so far as the aftermarket stuff or the building process. But every once in a while you get a young, ambitious builder that just doesn't kind of know. He builds it like he would do a kitchen in somebody's house. And it looks great, but it's just too much weight and it's not gonna hold up properly because the cabinets aren't constructed with the proper manufacturing techniques that you'd need for off-roading or whatever. If you're having problems, you're out there and you notice a lot of times, every time there's always something that's going wrong with your van, it's probably due to the amount of weight that the van has on it. It's just taxing things to the point of the breaking point. And if you just kind of step back, maybe look at where you could start shaving off some weight, maybe look where you could start configuring some things to lighten everything up and getting it more suitable to build up what you need to build up, minus what you need to minus, you will have a lifetime of fun in your adventure van.